Once you have signed in, you should see a website that looks very similar to this. So recall before we had a little login button over here and we had some other button going on over here on the right side. And some of these selections may have been grayed out because we hadn't logged in yet. Well, now that we've logged in, we can go ahead and go to this first selection where it says version. And I'm going to choose 2017 version of this application. And then for operating system, there's only one option here, 64-bit. If you have two options, you're always going to want to choose 64-bit. We all should be running Windows Pro in a 64-bit version. Down here where it says language, I'm going to choose English. And if you're an international student, you may be tempted to choose another language, but you're always going to want to choose English because your professors are going to deliver content in English and they'll help you in English as well. Also notice here we have some additional information such as the serial number, the product key, and the file size. So we can see it's going to be a 10 gigabyte download. So that's a fairly large download. This is why we decided to do this all in Google Chrome. And then it says that we can install this on up to 2 personal devices. This is kind of really useful to know. In past releases, this information was kind of hidden from us, and we just kind of didn't know how many times we could install this or how many different places we could install this. So over here, we have another button that says Install Now, and notice to the right side of the button, we have the ability to click it to have a drop down. I'm going to scroll down a little bit more so I can see more of this. And what we're going to want to do is choose download now instead of install now. And the reason why is if we choose install now, it's going to download and then try to install it. Well, we want it to be a successful download first before we try to go to install it. So before I proceed beyond this point, one thing I want to keep in mind is I want to make sure that I have met all of the prerequisites. I have my antivirus disabled. I don't have my computer, monitor, or hard disk going to sleep mode. I am in the correct time zone, the correct time is set, the correct date is set, so on and so forth. And I don't have antivirus installed yet since this is a new computer, but if you are a returning student, you may want to make sure that your antivirus software is disabled. If you go to download and there happens to be a missing file because Trend decides to quarantine it because it doesn't recognize it, and then when you go to install, you're not going to get an error message. What will happen is as you're working along in CAD, you'll find that some function doesn't work or your CAD will just simply crash to the desktop. So to avoid those kind of weird kind of problems that are really difficult to troubleshoot or to figure out exactly which file is missing, definitely go through the prerequisites and make sure that you've met each one of those. Alright, so now moving along here, I'm going to choose the Download Now option. And now it's asking me where I want to save the Autodesk Download Manager Setup.exe. So I do have a secondary drive on this computer, and I'm going to go ahead and set up my file management system here. I'm going to put it in a directory called X, and for me it's just a mental note that anything that's in the directory X needs to be backed up. So I'm going to open X, create a new folder here, and I'm going to call this Software. And then inside of Software, I'm going to make another new folder called Autodesk. And maybe I'll give it a year, such as 2017, just so that I know that this one is the 2017 version. If you're going to be here for, 3 more years, especially if you're an incoming second year, it's probably not a good it's probably a good idea to start dating things like this. Now I'm going to create another folder in here, and I'm going to call this Civil 3D. And what I'll probably do is also download Revit. While I'm here, why not, right? And then I'm also going to grab 3ds Max, and you may have other things that you may also want to download depending upon what your professor wants you to do for Design Studio. So definitely communicate with them, and then create additional folders for those other applications that you need to download. So I'm just going to go into the Civil 3D folder because that's where this is going to get saved into. I'm going to click Save. And depending upon your internet connection and of course the speed of your computer, it'll either download fast or very slow. So this downloaded fast because it's a very small file. So in Google Chrome, I'm going to click on this little arrow here to the right side of this download completed icon, and I'm going to click on Show in Folder. And when I do that, it'll take me right to the folder where this is located at. Now I'm going to go ahead and double click on this exe file and click yes to this. Click I agree. And what it's doing is it's downloading it, so it's creating a net session. Now, if you find that you're having difficulties with downloading this, one thing that I find to be a little bit helpful is to disable TCP/IP version 6. So we may or may not have challenges with this. We'll see how it goes. If we do, I'll show you how to do that. If you get this little firewall prompt, you're definitely going to want to allow the software to have access. If you deny it, then it will basically like never download. So make sure that you have both of these checked in and then choose allow access. And then there's another window here in the background. I'm going to choose launch application. Now it's asking me where I want to save it, so I'm going to click change because I don't want it to go to my C drive. It'll fill it up. So this is just simply the installer, not the actual, after it installs thing. So I want it to go to my data drive. So this is just the download itself. Once it downloads, then we have to install it. So I'm having it go into the Civil 3D folder. So I'll click OK here. And again, this could take a very long time. It's about 10.2 gigabytes. While our application is downloading, there is a few other things that we can do here while we're waiting. And the first thing that we should do is copy and paste the serial numbers and the product key. Now I do want to let you know that this particular serial number and this particular product key is only going to work with this particular download. In other words, if you have another downloaded copy of this particular product and try to use these serial numbers and product key, it will not work. So the product key and the serial number is bound to the download, so we need to make sure that both of them do not get lost, and they're kind of generally placed in the same place. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on my start menu and go to the run button, and I'm going to type in Notepad. Once I do that, Notepad will open for me, and I'm just going to make the window smaller just so that I can see what's going on here. And I'm going to copy and paste the serial number and the product key into that Notepad window. There it is. And of course, you can go in here and format it any way you want. What I am going to do is I'm going to indicate that this is AutoCAD Civil 3D 2017. Because remember, you can only use it on this install, this particular install. You can't use it on another copy. I'm going to save this to the same place that I downloaded everything to. So that's on my E drive here in X, Software, AutoCAD, Civil 3D. And I'm just going to stick it in here. I'm going to call it serial numbers and then click save. So just in case this page closes out or whatever, it might generate a new serial number, meaning that I have to download a new copy, and I don't want to have to do that, so I have the serial number here. Just going to minimize this window and wait for my download to finish. Once it is done downloading, you'll see a user account control thing, so we'll go ahead and just click yes to that. And it will immediately jump into the installer. So before we continue with the installer, let me get the installer open over here. I'm going to go ahead and just click exit for now. So it says the installation is not complete. You may run the wizard again at a later time to complete the installation. Are you sure you want to cancel? I'm going to click cancel for now. And the reason why is because if you had some difficulties getting it downloaded, and many people did last year, I want to give you some tips and tricks on how to kind of resolve that issue. Well, the first one's going to obviously be the firewall and the Trend Micro antivirus, so we need to make sure that those things are temporarily disabled. The second one may have to do with your network connection settings or your ISP settings. So let's start with the computer. It's most likely going to be your computer settings. So I'm just going to right click on the start button and go to the control panel, and in here I'm going to be looking for network and sharing center. And once I click on that, this window should open. I'm going to look for the change adapter settings, And right now everything is communicating through this adapter setting. You may have more than one here, especially if you have wireless or Bluetooth and other things going on. So definitely look for the Ethernet or the one that you're using to communicate with onto the internet. So if at home you're on wireless and you're not using the internet, then obviously you want to do these steps I'm about to show you on your wireless adapter. So I'm connected through an Ethernet cable, so that's why I only have one here. I don't have wireless on this computer, it's a desktop. I'm going to right click on this and I'm just going to go to the properties. And inside of the properties, one thing that I'm going to look for is something called TCP/IP version 6. So if you have this enabled, this could potentially be one of the reasons why you may have trouble downloading. Sometimes, don't know why, it gets confused and it's not sure if it should use TCP/IP version 4 or TCP/IP version 6. So if you're trying this from campus, you should be on TCP/IP version 4. We don't have TCP/IP version 6 on campus. So if you want to prepare your machine for campus, you can certainly turn off TCP/IP version 6, and to do that you just simply uncheck the box, click OK, and it will require you to restart the computer, and that's why I'm not going to do it here. Some other things that you probably don't need, it's more of a luxury item, is this very bottom one here, link layer topology discovery responder, the Microsoft LLDP protocol driver, the link layer topology discovery mapper, and you could also turn off the QoS packet scheduler. What you really need, what you absolutely have to have, is this one here, and the file and print sharing for Microsoft Networks, and the client for Microsoft Networks. So it's just those three that you really need. Again, if you haven't had any problems, you don't need to turn these things off, but if you are having problems with downloading, it may be useful to turn those extra protocols off. So from here I'm going to click cancel since I didn't make any changes.